When it comes to women in NASCAR, their reputation is, well, it's spotty. Let's just leave it at that. Janet Guthrie was trailblazing it for women in the 70s, and Danica Patrick was the face of women in motorsports for over a decade. From Shauna Robinson to Joanna Long, to Patty Moise to Jennifer Jo Cobb, and everyone before and after, there are two women who become big talking points when mentioned in conversation. Hailie Deegan and Natalie Decker. Two women whose careers are so similar but are treated so differently from the fan base that it's almost crazy. One is viewed as a bust, the other is viewed as someone with untapped potential. One is viewed as someone with bad luck, and the other is viewed as a guaranteed caution. But how do we get to this conversation about these two? Well, let's take a look back at their respective careers and how we got to this point. Let's talk about our first woman on here, Natalie Decker. Natalie was born in Eagle River, Wisconsin. Born into a racing family, Natalie's father, uncles, and grandparents raced anything and everything and were involved in motorsports in other ways, most prominently snowmobiles, as her dad and uncle's team were inducted into the Snowmobile Hall of Fame. Natalie started racing go-karts at age 9, where she would win multiple track championships at USA International Speedway and at the Badger Kart Club. At age 12, Natalie would move up to full-size cars and race 4-cylinders in 2010 and would win races at Golden Sand Speedway and La Crosse Speedway. In 2011, Natalie would start competing in the Central Wisconsin Superstock Association and would win races at State Park Speedway and Marshfield Motor Speedway. In 2012, Natalie would go on to win the championship in the Superstock division against 35 other drivers that season. Natalie would move up to limited late models in 2013, along with racing in the ARCA Skag Midwest Truck Tour, where she would win races at tracks such as Madison International Speedway and State Park Speedway. Things were looking up for Natalie during this time, as she was accepted into the NASCAR Rev Racing Drive for Diversity Combine. 2014 and 2015 saw the start of a busy time for Natalie. While racing limited late models at State Park Speedway, where she would win the track championship, she would start racing super late models at New Smyrna and tracks around Wisconsin, where she would score multiple featured wins. While racing super lates in 2016, Natalie would make her first attempt at a NASCAR Truck Series race at Martinsville. Natalie would attempt the race with Beaver Motorsports and would try to race with her cousins, Paige and Claire. Unfortunately, Natalie would fail to qualify. In 2017, Natalie would make 7 starts in the ARCA series for Venturini Motorsports. She would score 2 top 10s and would have an average finish of 13.1. For her first handful of starts, that's not terrible, but it can be improved on. 2018 would see Natalie run full-time in the ARCA series for Venturini, and it would start off with a bang. She would score a pole at the season opener at Daytona and would finish 5th. That would be the highlight of her season, as she would score 1 more top 5 and would have 9 top 10s on the season. Now, if this had been her results for a Xfinity or Truck Rookie year, then it would be considered a fairly good year. But this is ARCA, and she's driving for one of the best teams in the series. Plus, there were only 7 full-time drivers in the 2018 season, and she finished 7th of those drivers in points. The best move would be to stay in the ARCA series for another year to improve her craft, right? Well, that wasn't the case. In 2019, she would move up to the Truck Series and drive David Gilliland's number 54 truck for 19 of the 23 races. She would also run Trans Am races and in the Formula W Series. But for now, let's focus on her NASCAR career. Her debut would be at the season opener at Daytona, and she would only run 1 lap. On lap 2, she would run over a piece of debris and would lose a tire. That tire would also rip the left front fender off and would cut an oil line, causing a small fire. If this didn't set the tone for the season, I don't know what did. In the 19 races, she caused or was involved in 15 cautions the entire season, whether it was her fault or not. And the only moments people remember from her is when she got spun by the wrecker at Bristol, and that moment with Spencer Boyd at Kentucky. She had zeros across the board and had a best finish of 13th at the first Las Vegas race that season. 2020 would see big changes for Natalie. She would leave DGR and Toyota and would join Nice Motorsports for a limited schedule. Her season would start again at Daytona, and her start of the season was way better than last year's race. She would run all the laps and would finish 5th. It's her best finish of her truck career, and it's the best finish FEMA has had in the Truck Series. Outside of that, it was more of the same. She would run mid to back half of the field and would have a best finish of 20th at the Daytona road course. Now, to be fair to her, the majority of the races she ran had no practice or qualifying, but still, not a good look. After 2 years of truck racing, where the results haven't been there, what is the best decision to do for your career? Well, let's move on up to the Xfinity Series. 2021 would see Natalie run 5 races, first for RSS Raymond Brothers Partnership, and then for Our Motorsports. Her Xfinity debut would be at the Daytona road course and would only run 4 laps, after spinning over one of the curbs on the front stretch. Her best finish was a 24th at Talladega, but her best run will be at Martinsville, where she finished 25th on the lead lap. Which is really odd when you think about it, to finish that far back at Martinsville and still be on the lead lap. The next 2 seasons will be the most difficult seasons of her career. Across ARCA, Truck, and Xfinity, she would attempt 10 races and would only run 6 of them. Her best finish would come in the 2023 ARCA season opener at Daytona, where she finished 14th. 2024 would see Natalie join DGM Racing at Daytona. At first, it looked like she wasn't going to qualify due to rain, but luckily for her, the rain held off and she got to qualify in on time for the race. And it's her best Xfinity race to date. She scored her best finish of her career in 18th, and with the help of pit strategy, she led her first laps in her career, leading 7 laps. She would run one more race this year at Charlotte, where she would run in the back and finish 29th. It's the last race we're going to see Natalie run for a while, unless someone wants to put a pregnant lady on track. If that happens, then I'll be impressed. Okay, now that we've finished talking about the first woman on here, let's talk about the other woman of discussion, Hailie Deegan. Hailie was born and raised in Temecula, California. Unless you just started following motorsports, you know that she's the eldest child of famed Supercross and X Games competitor Brian Deegan. Hailie started racing at the age of 8 when she was gifted a trophy cart for her birthday. She would race short course off-road races in series like the Lucas Oil Off-Road Series and the SSX Stadium Series, where she would compete in the kart junior division. Hailie would score 3 regional championships in 2013, 2015, and 2016 in the Lucas Oil Series, and would also win Driver of the Year in 2016. After 2016, Hailie decided to take on a new challenge in asphalt racing. In 2017, she would be accepted into the Drive for Diversity program and the NASCAR Next class, and would run a mixture of races in late models, bandoleros, and legends cars. In 2018, she would go race in the K&N West Pro Series for Bill McAnally Racing full-time, and would run a part-time schedule in the East Pro Series. Her first K&N East race was a sour start, as she DNF'd after an electrical problem. Her K&N West debut was a different story. She had a solid race where she would start 8th and finish 7th, but the story was who she was racing against. The race was at Kern County Speedway, the home track of Kevin Harvick. Kevin was in the race and raced Hailie for position and was impressed. Kevin stated in an interview that if there was a driver that he would want to represent Kevin Harvick Incorporated, it would be Hailie Deegan. The rest of her East starts had really nothing to show. No top 10s with a best finish of 13th. Now her West season was something to talk about. In 14 races, she would score 12 top 10s and 5 top 5s, and would finish 5th in the standings. But the biggest moment of that season would be at Meridian Speedway, where she would start 4th and would make a bump and run on teammate Cole Rouse to her first win in the West Pro Series, becoming the first woman to win in the series. 2019 will be a better year for her. Her East Series stats are 3 top 10s with a best finish of 9th twice. Her West Series season was better than the first year. She would win the opening race at the Las Vegas dirt track and again at Colorado. She would score 11 top 10s and improve her average finish from 7.7 to 6.1, finishing 3rd in points. Hailie would make her ARCA debut in 2019 as well for Billy Venturini, and would make 6 starts and would score 4 top 10s and a top 5 at IRP. 2020 would bring big changes into Hailie's career. Hailie would leave the TRD program and would head over to the Ford Development Program. This was looked at the time as a real good move. The Toyota program has a lot of drivers and very little opportunities to move up, so her heading to Ford was looked like a positive as there would be more opportunities. She would head up to the ARCA Series in 2020 for DGR Crosley Racing in their number 4 Ford Fusion. Her season would start off hot as she would finish 2nd at Daytona. She would score 4 top 5s and 17 top 10s in the 20 races in the season. A solid rookie season as she would finish 3rd in points. but that was only with 4 full-time drivers in the field, while drivers like Ty Gibbs, Sam Mayer, Chandler Smith, and others that ran partial schedules would win races, and she didn't. It would be a good decision if she would run ARCA another year to gain more experience, right? It would be very important for her career to move her up when she's ready. But 2020 is where her career would take a turn. After the ARCA season finale at Kansas, she would make her Truck Series debut the next day at Kansas and would have a solid day. She started 34th due to no qualifying due to the you-know-what and would finish 16th, a very solid showing. From there, that set the stage for 2021, as she would move up to the Truck Series for David Gilliland and drive the #1 Ford F-150. For a lot of fans, 2021 was just going to be a throwaway year. Many of the races still didn't have practice or qualifying, so her first lap on track would be turn 1, lap 1 of the races. Her rookie year went as expected. One top 10 with a 7th at Gateway and an average finish of 20.9 with a 17th place points finish was what came of her season, but outside of NASCAR was a different tale. In 2021, she would run 3 races in the newly formed SRX Series, and in her first start at Knoxville, she finished on podium in 2nd. 2022 was a year to see improvement as practice and qualifying would return, and it being her sophomore year. But like many drivers before her, she suffered from the sophomore slump. She scored 2 top 10s with a best finish of 6th at Talladega, but had 7 DNFs, and 5 of those 7 were crashes. She would finish 21st in points, marking the season as a regressive year. But during that 2022 season, something happened that got fans wound up. In the later half of the season, it was announced that Hailie would make her Xfinity debut at Las Vegas for SS Greenlight with support from Stewart Haas. She started 20th, ran in the lower top 20 all day, and finished 13th, the best finish a woman has made in her debut. This immediately got talks from fans to put her in the Xfinity Series, and the excuses really started pouring in on why she wasn't doing good in trucks. More on that later. But before she got to go to Xfinity, she had one more year of trucking to do. After the 2022 season, David Gilliland Racing would switch from Ford to Toyota and rebrand as Tricon Garage. With Hailie being a Ford driver, she needed a new team. Enter ThorSport Racing and their identity crisis as they switched back from Ford after flip-flopping from Ford to Toyota over the last decade. She would be paired up with Rich Lucius as her crew chief and have teammates that win races and championships. Surely this would help her improve, right? Well, at the start of the season, there was signs of improvement. At the second race of Las Vegas, she qualified 5th, her best qualifying run in her truck career. And a few weeks later at Texas, she would tie her best finish of 6th. And after Kansas, she was only 25 points behind in the standings to make the playoffs after 8 races. However, after Kansas, she would finish 20th or worse in 6 straight races and would fall back to 19th in points. She would fail to make the playoffs again, and it was not a good look for her. She was sitting 19th in points, and with that 6th at Texas being her only top 10 at the start of the playoffs, while her 3 full-time teammates made the playoffs, and one of them won the title. Even an aging Matt Crafton made it in, and she didn't even come close. But at the start of playoffs, to me, something very funny happened in a span of 24 hours. Hailie was racing in the SRX again, and they were at Eldora Speedway, while the Truck Series would race the next night at Indianapolis Raceway Park, a mere 2-hour and 20-minute drive. So Hailie raced at Eldora and had an eventful race. She was involved in an early crash when Austin Dillon left oil on the track, then she climbed into a car that wasn't set up like how she would want it and ended up finishing 2nd and getting praise from Tony Stewart for being a good dirt racer. For the next 24 hours, all you saw on social media was Xfinity, Xfinity, Xfinity. In the truck race, however, she would cause a crash on lap 15. Now, there's no real good angle of the crash because, well, it was Fox that was airing the race. But I can assume, as Landon Lewis, one of the drivers involved in Hailie's accident, would spin her into the wall after he lost his brakes. Yeah, okay, Landon, wink wink. She would grab one more top 10 on the season and would end up 19th in points, the third to last full-time driver in points. Hailie's time in the series is viewed as a disappointment, as there was no major improvement in the 3 seasons that she was there. The hype didn't match the results, and now the base is split on what she should do next. Well, in October of 2023, it was announced that Hailie would move up to the Xfinity Series to drive AM Racing's number 15 on a multiple season deal. The response from fans was that this was what she needed to show her true talent as a racer. And the response from those who questioned the move is prove it. At Daytona to start the season, Hailie would crash out on lap 23, and Daniel Suarez crashed and slid back up into the track and would hit him. Obviously not a great start to the year, and then to run out of gas near the end at Atlanta with the rest of her Ford teammates doesn't help matters either. Her first good run would be at Las Vegas, where she would finish 15th, but made a boo-boo nearly spinning Ryan Ellis. After Las Vegas, she would finish outside the top 20 for 3 straight races until scoring 18th at Martinsville after an incident with Brennan Poole and Kyle Weatherman. She would score her best finish 2 races later at Talladega, where she would finish 12th after being the last car on track all race, played fuel strategy, and had a few cautions go her way. Hey, it was a smart way to get that finish, so I'm not going to complain about it. Hailie would score one more top 20 finish this season at Charlotte with a 20th place finish. After Charlotte, she would have 3 finishes outside the top 30 in the next 5 races. After a 28th place finish at Nashville, Hailie would sit 27th in points, last of the full-time drivers. And on the owners' points side of the standings, the 15 was 34th in points. Going into Chicago, there is a possibility that they might miss this race. So a change was made and Joey Logano was swapped in for Chicago. Joey goes out and qualifies the car 15th and would finish 8th, the team's first top 10 of the season. Not long after Chicago, it will be announced by both Hailie and team that they have parted ways in the middle of the season, leaving Hailie's future in question, and as of this recording, she has nothing really lined up for next year. Hey guys, it's Barncat here. I'm adding this in during my editing process. But anyway, it was announced after this recording later in the day that Hailie Deegan will be racing for HMD Motorsports in the Indy Next Series, where she's going to run the full 14 race schedule in 2025. So I guess if there's anything to say, it's, well, good luck to her. But anyway, let's get back to the video. Hailie's career started so well, and like many others, to get it to the top 3 series, it falls apart. And as earlier mentioned, the excuses of why she didn't run well in trucks and her time with AM Racing vary. So let's break down some of those excuses, starting with in the truck series. One of the big ones was that the trucks didn't fit her driving style. Most of her success wasn't in K&N and ARCA, so many people believe that since the truck is aerodynamically different than the cars, she should have went to Xfinity so she didn't have to change her driving style. Well, that is true, but good drivers adapt to what they are driving. Connor Zilic has been complimented for being a great diverse driver because he can adapt to different types of cars so fast. For whatever reason it may be, it just seemed like she never adapted to the truck series. Another reason was that the truck series isn't as good for development. Some fans say since the trucks are different, they don't help with development as well as the Xfinity Series. It's a rack 'em up and crash 'em series, they say. Some people also point out that guys like Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, and Harrison Burton as drivers that didn't do well in trucks, but did much better when they got to the Xfinity Series. While those guys didn't dominate the truck series to head to the Xfinity Series, they at least put up some numbers. We'll use Harrison as an example here. In Harrison's lone full-time season, he scored 11 top 10s in 22 starts, and has 18 top 10s in his 40 starts in the series. In Hailie's 69 starts, nice, she has 5 top 10s. Again, don't have to dominate, but at least pull up some numbers. And for those who say the trucks aren't good for development, go ask Todd Gilliland, Carson Hocevar, Zane Smith, and so on about development in trucks. The next excuse covers both series is that everyone is more aggressive towards her. Okay, first off, she is not Janet Guthrie in 1979, okay? So let's get that out of the way right now. Secondly, she herself built a reputation for being an aggressive driver. Remember those K&N wins that she got? She got those for moving people out of the way, even spinning out her own teammate. Even in ARCA and trucks, she made aggressive moves against drivers and they dished it back out. Another one of these excuses and that goes for both series, was that the teams she drove for weren't good. You could argue DGR wasn't a contending team to win every week, but top 10 was definitely possible, and she underperformed there, and that her move to ThorSport improved nothing. If anything, it showed regression. Yes, people were saying ThorSport was not a good team. Then when she got to AM Racing, a team that Brett Moffitt carried 9 top 10s and a 15th place points finish as well, all of a sudden became a team that struggled to get top 20s or to stay in the top 30. I know what you're thinking, you can't compare her to Brett Moffitt, Brett's a very talented driver. Okay, fine. However, let's compare her to another rookie that season. Let's compare her to Leland Honeyman. Leland and the Young's Motorsports team were both rookies to the Xfinity Series. They were an under-the-radar entry to the series, so they were pretty much on equal footing to Hailie in AM racing. But in the 17 races they competed against each other in, Leland beat Hailie 12 times out of 17. There's really no excuse why Leland should be ahead of her like he is. They should be about even with the equipment they have. And the final excuse, which can go for both Hailie and Natalie, is lack of experience. When it comes to the Xfinity Series, neither one of them have a full season under their belt. Hailie only has 18 starts, and Natalie only has 12 starts. The difference is Natalie's starts are over a span of 4 seasons, and sometimes in cars that are lucky to see the top 30. And Hailie's starts are pretty much all lumped into one season, except for that one-off in 22, in equipment that can run in or just outside the top 20. Would having someone coach them and have more track time help them in their careers? I like to think that, but them rushing up through the ranks was, and clearly, not helping them in any way. No, I can't blame them for everything bad that would happen to them. Not everything is their fault, but I can still blame them for poor performance. Natalie underperformed at Venturini, and when she was at DGR, she was behind Tyler Ankrum by a lot. With Hailie, it was no different with her at DGR, ThorSport, and AM Racing. Both of them were at good quality teams and yet failed to put up the decent results. But all that now brings us back to our original question. We've went through their careers, read the stats, watched them over the last 6 years, and have seen so many similarities. But how is it that there is still a base saying Hailie is a good racer, and that everyone says that Natalie is a, quote, moving chicane? Well, there's 2 reasons for this. One is their social media popularity. Both these two have a rather large following across all social media platforms, from Twitter to Instagram to YouTube. For Hailie, that social media following crosses over to the racing side of her career, where you see a lot of her defenders come around when something happens or she doesn't have a good run. Now, Natalie herself has a fairly large audience across all platforms. I added all her numbers from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok, and they all in total over 733,000 followers. Now granted, there's a lot of people that follow her on all these platforms, but still, that's a pretty large number. Hailie's Instagram doubles that number with 1.6 million followers alone. And if we add all her accounts, they equal to a little over 6.5 million followers. That is Natalie's numbers times 9. And we're not even adding in the Deegan family YouTube channels to that. She's a very popular personality, and all that crosses over, whether good or bad, will come over and voice their opinion of her against the quote-unquote haters. The second reason goes more with the racing aspect of it, and I call it the K&N blinders. When it comes to climbing the racing ladder, to me, it's like climbing through the ranks of baseball. You play in Little League, then high school, college, then go through the minor league system till you make it to the majors. Racing is no different. You start in small karts, then you race the bigger cars, then you get picked up by someone in one of the lower series, and you work your way up to the Cup Series. Now, I don't follow baseball that closely, so if I'm wrong, please say something. Most of Hailie's success came in the K&N Series, which is the equivalent to college baseball. People look at those years and cling to that success to say that she can be a big star. Now, when she started moving up, her success started to become less and less, but we would see bright spots and would grasp to those as proof to say that she has what it takes. She's the first round pick that isn't as good as everyone thought, but can put together an okay game every now and then. One big thing about Hailie's fans will say is that she's young and needs time to develop. While yes, she is young drivers like her need to capitalize on the opportunities that they have. And when they don't take advantage of what they have, they get tossed to the curb. One driver that can relate to this is Dylan Kwasniewski. Back in the early 2010s, Dylan was one of the rising stars in the sport. Dylan won the K&N West title in 2012 and the East title in 2013, being the only one to win both championships in the series. In 2014, Dylan got the opportunity to drive for Turner Scott Motorsports and become a Chip Ganassi Racing development driver. Dylan was only able to score 3 top 10s in 2014 and was booted out at season's end after losing his sponsor, and at the end of the 2015 season, he was gone. Someone who I believe has a lot more talent than Hailie does was gone in a few short years without getting another chance. So if If he has better accolades than she does, then why should she keep getting the opportunities? But that's just me ranting, if this wasn't a rant already. Anyway, let me know what you think, what's your opinion on these two, and if you think they'll ever find any success in the future, and you all have a nice day.